Trash like you belongs on the street, not in this courtroom. That's what he spat, like his tongue was a loaded weapon. And then, without warning, he slapped a black female officer across the face. Right there, blood streaking down her uniform in front of the flag, and the judge and every damn person who ever convinced themselves that racism was just some old headline. And you want to know the wildest part? She didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't back away. She just stood, silent and steady, the way stone stands in a river, letting the current swirl around but never sweeping her away. For minutes later, the man who thought he could do anything with his badge and his birthright was face down on the floor, the whole thing streaming live, watched by a public that, for one heartbeat, couldn't pretend this was just an incident. This was the mask slipping, the rot bleeding out, a slap so loud you could hear it echo off the marble and right through every living room in America. That day, in the Jackson courthouse, it didn't just smell like sweat and old wood. It reeked of something deeper, heavier, something that gets into your clothes and hair and never quite washes out. Call it resentment. Or maybe the death of pretending. Ava Caldwell was the kind of woman who lit up a room just by walking into it. Not because she smiled or made a scene, but because she wore her orange blazer like a signal flare, a declaration saying, "I see you. I dare you." The MP badge on her chest caught the overhead lights, and you could feel the weight of every eye, some curious, most cold, watching her every step. She didn't blink, didn't fold. Whatever fear she might have carried once had moved out a long time ago. She sat, back straight, palms on her thighs, and when the state's lawyer finally stood, perfect hair, dead eyes, that lawyerly way of not blinking, he looked right at her and said, "Are you here for justice or just for colored sentiment?" The words spilled like oil, thick, slick, impossible to clean up. Ava waited for the hush and then said, "I am here," and nothing else. And in the kind of silence that lands heavy and suffocating, you could almost hear the judge's heart pounding in his chest. And then the sheriff, Rick Harland, big, red-faced, used to getting his way, stood up, boots thudding, crossing the floor like a storm front rolling in. He didn't look for permission, didn't ask to speak. "That boy wasn't even a person," he barked, pointing. "And you side with trash." And before anyone could stop him, before the judge could bang his gavel, he slapped Ava, open-palmed, across the face. The crack of it snapped through the room like a whip. Ava's head barely moved, but blood dripped down her chin, catching on her badge, a bright red mark on a silver promise. The silence afterward wasn't peace. It was terror, the kind where people hold their breath so long, they forget they're alive. Ava didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't even lift a hand to wipe the blood away. She just stood, eyes on the room, searching not for pity but for anyone who might still recognize what injustice looks like, even when it wears a badge. No one spoke. Not one damn person. The cameras on the walls flickered, glitched, went black. But a single phone, a college intern's live stream, caught it all. In that pixelated, trembling footage, you see her, standing. Not heroic, not larger than life, just unbroken. Alone.no official record, no statement, no apology. Just Ava, walking out, blood on her blazer, the sound of her shoes echoing across marble like a slow drumbeat, and behind her, a room full of people too scared to breathe. And somewhere, in that void, something shifted, not in the law, but in the air. Later, when she sat down at her old laptop, searching for Jalen Ross in the federal database, the screen blinked non-existent. Again and again, each spelling, each code, gone. Erased. Not lost, but deleted systematically. She drove to the high school, same result. To the hospital, no patient by that name. Everywhere she turned, records were blank, names crossed out, signatures missing. Even the missing kids board in the school hallway told a story. 18 faces. Only one name slashed through with angry red, Jalen Ross. And then, late at night, a slip of paper tucked under her windshield. The more you search, the more you'll lose. No threat, just a warning. The kind that tastes like metal and thunder and means something bigger is at stake. In her apartment, she cross-checked databases, found 5 more teens, all relocated, all erased. No files, no records, no families. All with one cryptic code. ER2XJ. A knock at dawn. A parcel, no return address. Inside, a cheap blue pen, heavier than it should be, unscrewing to reveal a micro SD card. On it, a single audio clip. "What's your name?" asks a clipped, adult voice. "Jalen," the boy replies. Silence. Then, "Not anymore. From now on, you don't have a name." Ava listened again and again, each time feeling the world tilt just a little more. She traced the sender to a rundown house in Mississippi, met a young woman who handed her a photograph. Jalen, with other teens, standing outside a holding facility, his face turned slightly away from the camera, as if he already knew what it was to disappear. Back at her desk, she hunted for the code. Finally, inside a military police server, a hidden folder, 73 files, each a serial number, each Reds designated. She opened Jalen's. Subject, ER2XJ, photo of a shaved head, hollowed eyes, a note, cognitive weakening successful. Subject no longer responds to prior naming stimuli. Ava yanked her drive out, a sliver of hope copied. Just as the system shut down, lights flickering, a voice overhead. Session terminated. User traced. A text on her phone. Files are not the only thing scheduled for deletion. You're on the list too. She stood in the parking lot, USB in hand, breath fogging in the dawn. Maybe, she realized, this wasn't about proof anymore. It was about staying remembered long enough to finish the job. The next day, she confronted Rick Harland in public. He strutted into the hearing like a man made of headlines, not bones. Called her just a badge that forgot what it was attached to. This time, when he tried to hit her, Ava moved. In 4 precise movements, she folded him. 1. Wrist control. 2. Center of balance. 3. Knees. 4. Face down on the tile, all caught on camera. She leaned down, whispered, "I didn't hit you. I reclaimed the image of justice you tried to dirty," and walked out. The clip went viral, but Ava refused interviews. No press, no tour, no victory lap. Just a 4-minute video played again and again, a new emblem for a country running out of excuses. But the story didn't end with that. Ava returned to the Restoration Archive, a place not for records or revenge, but for memory. One by one, people came, bringing objects, a ruler, a handkerchief, a faded shoe, evidence of lives erased, not by accident, but by design. A mother stood and wept. "That's mine. I stitched my boy's name into that. They took him." Ava just listened, letting silence say what words could not. Even when the government tried to silence her, suing for defamation, sending summons signed by the same man who had ordered the erasures, Ava stood steady, the photograph of a child's crossed-out name on her desk, a reminder that sometimes justice is just holding the line while the world tries to make you let go. And still, out there, a boy waited for his name. Ava found him, hollow-eyed, shaved head, no memory of himself. "Your name is in a picture," she whispered through the glass. "You wrote it. You said, 'Stay awake.'" And for a second, he almost remembered, tears on his face before he understood why. His hand pressed to the glass, reaching for a name they tried so hard to erase. She walked him out, past locked doors and silent guards, the sun hitting their faces for the first time in months. And somewhere, a system built to forget cracked just enough to let one name through. But this isn't the end. The world tried to move on. Teachers suspended for telling the truth, students reading the names out loud. A chair set out for the one who should have been there, street signs painted over, old power dying in silence, not thunder. People lined up, quietly, placing memory on courthouse steps, refusing to let the story end in deletion. And everywhere, the questions echo, painted on boards, scrawled on notes, asked by children. If the person with the gun doesn't answer, who answers for me? Will you say my name if I'm ever lost? So here's the thing, and I'm not going to tell you how to feel, because that's not my job, right? But if silence makes room for cruelty, what will you do when it walks into your world, sits in your seat, calls your name? Will you look away, or will you answer first? Let's hear it. Comment your thoughts below. Tell me what justice means where you live. And yeah, maybe, just maybe, remember that the names we choose to keep are the only ones that live on.